Hey folks, Eric coming in at the top here to say that this episode will be talking about a few more adult matters than we normally do in our usual episodes. So if you don't want to listen to that, or you got youthful ears around you that you don't want to explain things to, you might want to save this for a more private time. In the town of Everton-Cum-Lafferty, there's only one business that matters: sexy business. We're talking class warfare.
The world's oldest profession.
And Barnaby's new super underage informants on this episode of
Welcome to Midsomer.
Hello, and welcome to Midsomer, the podcast where we dissect all the mysteries, the murders, and the many weird things about the long-running hit TV show, Midsomer Murders. I'm your host, Eric Buscher, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Eileen Becker. Hey, Eileen.
Hey, Eric. Today we're talking about Country Matters, the 6th episode of the 9th series. It originally aired September 10th, 2006. It was directed by Richard Holthouse and written by Andrew Payne. Payne, let's clean those saddles. Whip noise.
I'm not even going to include a whip noise now. I'm just going to make every time it's whip noise. Spoiler warning. We will be discussing the events of this episode, including the identity of the murder. So if you haven't watched yet and don't want to know who done it, pause this and go watch it. We will still be here when you get back.
Mrs. Hawker, do you know what your husband was doing in Everton?
Working on some new supermarket development, according to him.
Yeah. And taking lessons at a cookery school.
You must be joking.
Didn't you know about that?
No, I did not. Look, where cooking is concerned, Frank was strictly Stone Age. He couldn't boil a kettle. It was a woman, I suppose, giving him these so-called cookery lessons.
Yes, you were.
Attractive?
Yes. You could say that.
Well, that would be of more interest to Frank than whipping up a casserole, believe me.
We open on a man and a woman riding horses across the countryside of Everton-Cum-Lafferty. When they return to the stables, Ginny Lamington isn't too happy with Frank Hopkirk's grooming skills and pulls out a riding crop, promising to take him in hand. Frank likes that. Later, Frank is doing some shooting in the countryside when he hears a cry for help. He finds Celia Patchett dressed in a flowing, half-open gown, caught in a bear trap. He helps her out, and then he helps her out. After that, Frank heads to the home of Rose Sutherly, who calls him husband, and fixes him a piece of cake before she offers him her piece of cake. Frank is like a one-man army, getting done more before 10 a.m. than you will all day. Later on at the Good Fare grocery store in Coston, Tom Barnaby and his wife Joyce run into Rose, who they both know from the Cordon Bleu cooking school she runs out of the home she shares with her teen daughter Dora. Apparently Joyce took some classes there, which at least lets us know how good a teacher Rose is. Rose complains that Good Fare is trying to open a location in Everton, and she is a part of a group opposing its construction. It's so contentious that she's surprised there have been no murders, and Tom's ears perk up like my dog's when she hears me do absolutely anything in the kitchen. The next day, Rose, Ginny, and Celia, as well as Ginny's husband Orlando and Celia's hubby Jeremy, discuss how they will fight the supermarket at the council meeting that night. Orlando tells Rose not to date pub owner Danny Piggott because of the business. Denying she has any interest in Danny, she races home for another session with Frank, who breaks character to profess his love for her and tell her he can help her fight Good Fare. She doesn't want to break the illusion. That night at the meeting, we see a village truly divided by class and agendas. All the anti-market protesters are more upper class, who can afford organic vegetable vendor Gary's prices. The pro-market forces are more working class, tired of the long drive to Coston to get horseradish, although Danny's going to sell his pub to the chain for a nice chunk of money. Town council member Dudley Painter is clearly Good Fare's PR exec Miranda Harvey's pocket, announcing that the chain will clean up an old toxic arsenic spill at the construction site. The meeting then ends the only way it can. Fight! Meanwhile, Otis Piggott, Danny's tween son, and Dora head over to the construction site to drink and smoke, and in the dark, Dora feels a hand on her leg. They discover the corpse of Frank, getting one last feel from beyond the grave. The next day, Barnaby and Jones show up to investigate. Borlard tells them that Frank was stabbed to death, but the lack of defensive wounds means he didn't really fight back. There are signs the body was dragged to the mill and they can't find a murder weapon at that point, but they do find the vodka and some smokes. Although the kids try to lie to cover up their bad habits, Barnaby gets the truth out of them and finds out that they usually hang out at the mill to smoke and drink, and that they saw Frank earlier that day take a soil sample there and put it in his briefcase, which is now missing. However, they did finally find the murder weapon, a kitchen knife, as well as Rose's card in Frank's wallet. So Barnaby visits Rose. She recognizes Frank as a Mr. Johnson, who she says was taking private classes from her. Oh, and her favorite knife is missing. Yep, it's the murder weapon. The detectives learn a lot more about Frank. He's an environmental health consultant who is working for both Good Fare and the council assessing the toxic site. Is that a conflict of interest? Yeah, no, it's not. His charming wife isn't too broken up over his death, saying that Frank was a sex addict. What? No.
Such a shock.
Yep. But not only that, his body was covered in bruises. Some were from a beating sustained the day of his murder, but some were from a spanking. When Rose's fingerprints are found on the knife, the detectives head back over to her place to tell her she's now a murder suspect.
Ooh.
Eileen, why don't you tell us a little bit of tourist information?
Okay. Everton-Cum-Lafferty is a wonderfully scenic village in Midsomer. It's the home of a writing school, a cooking school, and a private game reserve. Guys really love to get all these places 5 stars. It's also the home of a major dominoes competition and made headlines recently with its first drag show. If you come for a visit, please remember to bring your own food because it's a long drive to the grocery store.
So, obviously, this is Country Matters. This is known by many as the sexy episode of Midsomer.
Yeah.
Although it's very, like, when you watch it, it's really very chaste.
Except if you have the volume turned up.
Yeah, but all that stuff is still off screen. It's not like you hear moans. You see a van shaking, which I think I've seen in like PG movies.
Mm-hmm.
And they never say prostitution or sex work or any of that sort. I think back then prostitution would have been probably the term more people use. It's just called the business.
Mm-hmm. And S&M is called malchastisement.
That's what it's called now?
No, that's what they call it on the show.
Oh.
Well, Country Matters, the title comes from Shakespeare's Hamlet in reference to sex. It's a line that Hamlet says to Ophelia when he's talking about resting his head on her lap, and she takes offense and he says, "Did you think I'm referring to Country Matters?" Everybody in the theater, especially in the cheap seats, would have laughed at that line because they knew what that was about.
We talked last episode about sort of this discussion we saw online about, is Midsomer Murders a family show? And I have to say, this is the family show equivalent of an episode about sex work.
Yeah. It really pushes the line as much as I think they can get away with in the UK and still keeping it as a family show.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like they don't even say the word escort or anything like that. It's so clean. We know exactly what's going on, but it is so done in such a way that it's barely offensive. And yet people do describe this one as the sexy show.
Yeah.
You get they have the three, I guess, the menu of choices. They don't really explain how this business works, right? Like, they don't explain how they get customers or...
Well, in my research, a lot of this is done online these days, a lot of the advertising.
This episode was done in 2006. So, yeah, there would still be some online stuff, but as Rose kind of points out, I only deal with men of discerning tastes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of her... Like, I don't see Frank Hopkirk running around on, dark...
The dark web? I don't know. Maybe him, but maybe Sir Charles isn't hanging out on the dark web. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of word of mouth that goes on in this as well.
Yeah.
As far as advertising.
You get 3 experiences when you come to Elverton. You get the domme, or as you said, the mal-chastisement. You get the weird damsel in distress, and almost like wood nymph damsel.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Rose Rose gives you the wife, girlfriend, or mother experience, which is a little weird.
One thing that I noticed, and it goes by very quick, is that Lady Celia calls Sir Charles Mellors, which is a reference to gameskeeper Oliver Mellors, who's the lover in Lady Chatterley's Lover, a notoriously dirty book, by the way. It was banned, and you can now get the unexpurgated editions, but they had to, censor it a little bit when it was first published. So there are signals as to what's going on that the adults in the room would get.
Sure, because everyone reads Lady Chatterley's Lover. I think basically what you're saying is that Celia, the Celia is for lit nerds.
Yes.
Why were they videotaping everything? What and filming, and like Celia's husband's out there with a camera taking dirty, like it vaguely smacks like I feel like there's a blackmail component that they don't talk about.
There may be, it may be, I don't know, safety, or it could be extra for the video, or here are some nice photos of your session with Lady Celia.
It's not an amusement park ride. Like for example, like Celia's husband's hiding in the bushes with a camera, but there's a guy with a gun. Like, it's not safety. There's got to be more to this business than maybe did they talk about. But I think like the camera thing just becomes very important later on. But yeah, it struck me as curious, like, why would they video this? Like, why are they like, unless they're blackmailing? Like, my first thought was security, but then then it gets to Celia, and like there's no cameras, and it's just her husband in the bushes with a camera, which just screams pervy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of pervy, let's talk about Frank Hopkirk. What's he on?
Well, obviously he's on Viagra.
There's no obvious about it. It's like they don't mention it in Bullard. Like, I feel like that would have been a part of Bullard's Corner report. This guy was on enough Viagra to power three retirement communities. He visits all 3 of them in the same day.
Yeah.
Like, when does he do his job?
Well, apparently he just has to go out and get a few soil samples.
But that wasn't part of his job. That was actually he was doing that because he was actually going to do his job. Like, he's a shady businessman, clearly, and a sex addict.
But I think he did care enough for Rose that he did want to honestly help her with their grocery store issue.
I don't think he did. I mean, like, I don't really want to delve too much in the psychology of Frank Hopkirk, but once you meet Mrs. Hopkirk, and you realize that he really just likes I think he just likes the demure, subservient wife image. Because Mrs. Hopkirk is terrifying.
Yeah, she was, and that was a great performance. We will talk about her later, but oh my gosh, that was great. And Jones's reaction to her was fantastic. But yeah, you can see, she was the anti-Rose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't blame her for being that way, because again, if Frank is doing all this, she's lived a pretty miserable life.
Yeah. But now she's going on vacation.
Oh, yeah. I did think it's hysterical at one point that Jones called Frank Hopkirk an old man, even though Frank Hopkirk was in his 50s. And I was like, shut up, Jones.
Yeah. 50s isn't old. 50s is the new 20s, and 60s is the new 30s, or something like that.
Sure. It's just not old. And I think even Barnaby just looked at Jones as like, quiet.
Yeah.
So the other half of this all centers around, it all sort of ties into the fight against the Good Fare grocery store chain, which is that as we said in the recap, they want to put a store into Elverton. A certain group of people, the upper class, seem to are treating this as a class issue, and like the more working class, like, we don't want to drive an hour to get groceries. Even
Yeah.
Rose is like, I really hate driving an hour for groceries. I just don't want a grocery store in my community. I'm just like, it's all about class in this.
There is very much a NIMBY sensibility to the anti-grocery store people, even though the grocery store people are kind of really awful people themselves.
Well, they're a corporation, and
Yeah.
Miranda is very clearly a employee she's a PR exec. She is always on, like, her voice is always in that upper range. Hi, I'm hello. We're good to see you. It's it's very, very robotic. When she said, "We care at Good Fare," I cringed.
You know that they make their employees wear flair.
But I will say this. In the battle between who was worse, Miranda or Orlando, when Orlando said they were planning to take this fight to the Court of Human Rights, I was like, no matter what, I want the grocery store people to win. The height of our rights are being infringed by lower priced vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like interesting, like the character of Danny, who clearly was, working class, but wanted that payout. He wanted a better life. He wanted to get out of the village. He wanted to take Rose on a fancy dinner.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, like, we spend a lot more time with sort of the upper class between the Lamingtons and Celia and Rose and all that than really we have Danny and Gary, and those are the working class figures that we see in this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, we see very little of Gary's wife.
Yeah.
And then we see a little bit of Rev Suze, who goes between the two groups, I guess.
I mean, we don't really see a lot of Gary either. He's a pivotal character at one point, but like for the large part of it, we don't really, like, it's teased that he might be doing something else. We're doing one thing when we find out he's doing another.
He's delivering the veg.
They really do love having organic vegetable delivery drivers being up to no good.
It's like mailman, always in the delivery business.
Yep. Speaking of deliveries, Eileen, why don't you, obviously, your choices were between the history of grocery stores and the history of sex work, so I think we will dive into the history of sex work with your history corner.
There was the ditching and digging or something that, but I didn't know enough about that. Not that I know a lot about this before I did research, but anyway. So, prostitution has been described as the world's oldest.
Protesting way too much.
Okay. Prostitution has been described as the world's oldest profession, though once again, men are claiming that they were hunters, shepherds, and farmers first. I guess they needed something to trade for services rendered, and a turnip is as good as anything. The earliest recorded instances of prostitution over 4,000 years ago were often associated with religious temples, especially those dedicated to female goddesses, such as Ishtar in Uruk. In a trend that would continue until today, women who did sexual work inside the temple were more highly regarded than those who worked outside in the courtyards or in the streets. Sacred prostitution was practiced around the world in a variety of cultures and often involved both male and female prostitutes. Even with sacred prostitution, it was often mandated by custom or law that women who worked as prostitutes dressed in a certain manner. While legal in many societies, or at least not strictly banned, it was still something that was often relegated to certain areas or outside of the city walls. Port cities and military barracks were popular places to ply the trade, as was always a ready supply of customers, as were mining and frontier towns in later eras. Many prostitutes were slaves or victims of human trafficking. Selling daughters into prostitution is a practice that dates back millennia. In England, the first artifacts of prostitution may date from Roman times, and there was a token that was thought to have been made to pay for sexual services, as it depicted a man and a woman engaged in a sexual act. Or maybe it was a collectible, or a loyalty program. Buy 10 sessions and get your 11th free. In 1161, Parliament under Henry II allowed the Bishop of Winchester to license brothels and prostitutes in the Southwark area of London. This made a lot of money for the Bishop of Winchester. They were regulated and generally closed when Parliament was in session. In many towns in England, as in other countries, prostitutes were only allowed to ply their trade in certain areas or in designated streets. As with today, brothels often use pseudonyms and front businesses to disguise, barely, their intended purposes. Yesterday's bathhouse is today's massage parlor. By the 16th century, however, syphilis was running rampant through Europe, so prostitution was clamped down on by, of all people, Henry VIII. Of course, outlying brothels did not do away with them, and directories of London prostitutes were published in the following centuries. While many women were forced into prostitution due to financial circumstances, especially after the devaluing of women's work in the Industrial Revolution, there was another type who was well educated, trained in the arts, and who was sought as much or more for her company as for sex. Courtesans were an essential part of court life in medieval and Renaissance Europe, as couples were married more for political alliance and to preserve bloodlines, and they often lived separate lives. In Japan, the highest-ranking courtesans were called oiran and were considered highly skilled in the arts. The highly styled and fashionably dressed oiran can be seen in many woodblock prints from the Edo period. The highest rank, the taiyu, did not even engage in sex acts at all. Back in England, efforts to legally curb prostitution had little effect on decreasing the numbers. The Contagious Diseases Act forced women suspected of prostitution to be examined and detained in a hospital, a way to control women rather than the men who were also key in spreading sexually transmitted diseases. There was a big crackdown in Victorian times due to evangelical zeal, which considered prostitution a societal evil. In 1888, a series of 11 murders of prostitutes started, which became known as the Whitechapel Murders. At least 5 of those murders have been attributed to Jack the Ripper. Today, many women, and even some young men, are forced into prostitution to pay for drug habits or due to the housing crisis affecting many major cities. Migrant women, asylum seekers, and women leaving abusive relationships are the most at risk. Advocate groups campaign for decriminalizing sex work that is consensual and non-coercive. Others have suggested adopting a policy of criminalizing only the customers paying for sex to tamp down on the demand side while not contributing to the trafficking of women, girls, and boys into the sex trade. Lawmakers and advocates look to Amsterdam, Sweden, and the state of Nevada for answers on the issue, with little success. In Nevada, for example, though prostitution is legal in 10 of the 17 counties, 66 times more money is spent on illegal prostitution, especially in the cities of Las Vegas, Reno, and Carson City, where it is illegal. Where prostitution is legal or regulated, weekly health checkups are often required. While the exchange of sex services for money is technically legal in the UK, it is illegal to solicit in public, own or manage a brothel, or to pimp, which often isolates sex workers, making their trade more dangerous.
And again, I think you can see how the realities of that would be way too dark for Midsomer. That's why this is so tame.
Yeah, this is a very, very tame look at women who are acting more in the courtesan aspect of the sex trade.
Yeah. Let's jump into some cast highlights. Let's start with Tim Hardy, who was walking Himsad Frank Hopkirk. Hardy trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, or RADA, where he is now an associate teacher and on their audition panel. He's been on screen since the 60s, appearing in Marat Sade, The Duelists, The Sweeney, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, and most recently in the TV series version of Dangerous Liaisons. Ooh, he just can't get away from that. He's also an accomplished opera singer with a bass range. Juliette Aubrey played professional riding crop user Ginny Lamington. She studied acting at the Central School of Speech and Drama and received her first acting job playing Miranda at an Oxford Stage Company production of The Tempest. She's worked steadily on screen since her first uncredited role in the film Shining Through. She won a BAFTA TV Award for Best Actress for starring in a 1994 production of Middlemarch. She also played one of the main baddies in the show Primeval and appeared in The Constant Gardener, Still Crazy, The White Queen, The Infiltrator, the TV version of Snatch, and most recently in Professor T. Her cousin, by the way, is U2 guitarist and hat aficionado, The Edge. Johnny Phillips played Guy we knew we would instantly hate when we heard his first name, Orlando Lamington. Phillips is London-born and bred, and another Rotograd. He's a popular character actor who's worked steadily since his first appearance in 1985's Ties of Blood. He's been in Prick Up Your Ears, Titanic, Vanity Fair, Hunted, The Death of Stalin, The Death of Jaffa, and most recently, he was in the finale of the most recent season of Father Brown playing a crooked police officer. Madeline Potter played damsel in distress Celia Patchett. Potter is an American. She's the daughter of a diplomat and the great-great-granddaughter of New York City Mayor Thomas Francis Gilroy. She's appeared in 4 Merchant Ivory productions: The Bostonians, Slaves of New York, The Golden Bowl, and Leapin' Leprechauns. No, typo. That should say she appeared in The White Countess. But she did appear in Leapin' Leprechauns as well as the sequel, Spellbreaker, Secret of the Leprechauns. Her most recent role was in the current season of Unforgettable. John McAndrew was Happy Husband in the Bushes Jeremy Patchett. He's a Lambda grad and has appeared in Julie and the Cadillacs, The Ghost Hunter, I Shouldn't Be Alive, 5 Daughters, and Doctors. He's also earned his place on the Golden Throats Wiki, celebrating celebrities who sing, for his renditions of Upon the Hearth and To Rivendell for a 1981 radio adaptation of Lord of the Rings. Those songs sound instantly better than anything that was in the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies. Sophie Stuckey played down-to-earth and humble Dora Sutherly. She was 15 when she filmed this episode, having started acting at the age 11 with roles in Close Your Eyes and I Capture the Castle. She also appeared in The Woman in Black, Endeavor, and Vera, but she hasn't been in anything on-screen since 2013. I couldn't really find her online to really say if she's retired or not.
I found her, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I found her very, very good in this role.
She was very good at being pretty terrible. No, I mean, she had some issues, but let's talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Kirsty Bushell played the absolutely terrifying Rev Suze. Another Lambda grad, she's actually taught there for 13 years, although now she's currently teaching at the Fontainebleau School of Acting. On screen, she appeared in Life Isn't All Ha-Ha Hee-Hee, Injustice, Silent Witness, Silk, Murder in Provence, and in the recent Tom Jones miniseries. On social media, she comments that she's a happy contemplator and a terrible speller. Anthony Byrne was Gary Talbot, the Cucumber Delivery Man. I regret writing that. He's performed with the Royal Shakespeare Company and as a voice actor for a lot of video games. On screen, he's appeared in Prime Suspect, Touching Evil, The Wind That Shakes the Barley, Emmerdale Farm, The Witcher, and Outlander. Dorian Healy is totally calm and chill dude Danny Piggott. His first on-screen role was in 1970 when he played an uncredited role of Child in Albert Finney's Scrooge. Now, he worked as a child actor, getting larger and larger parts until he actually played a young Scrooge in school in the 1977 version of A Christmas Carol. As an adult actor, he's best known for his roles in Soldier Soldier, For Queen and Country, Capital City, Casualty, Wonderful You, and his final on-screen role, Minder, in 2009. He seems to have retired without playing Old Scrooge, so I think it's time for a comeback. Complete the circle.
Yep.
Jackie Morrison was cheerful automaton Miranda Harvey. She's born in Glasgow, the daughter of Scottish singer Peter Morrison. Her brother Richard is also a well-known singer and TV presenter. Guess what? She's a classically trained soprano herself. On TV, she's been in Taggart, Dr. Finley, Ultimate Force, and most recently in Meet You in Scotland and Romantic Getaway. Dominic Richards was corrupt Councilman Dudley Painter. He's appeared in Coronation Street, Night and Day, Rome, Family Affairs, Doctors, Casualty, and Royal Bastards, Rise of the Tudors. Ellie Garnett had the small role, as we said, of Fed Up Tracy Talbot. She's another Rotograd with only a handful of credits, most notably in the first episode of the rebooted Doctor Who, as well as Casualty and Doctors. She seems to have stopped acting around 2007, although she did reprise her Doctor Who role for a special audio venture. And Johnny Crouch was played by no idea. He didn't get a credit. He hits Jones in the head, and he gets no credit. Life is unfair.
So unfair. So on to our return visitors. We have Jack Crutch playing hard-drinking Otis Piggott. He is also in the Oblong Murders. As a child actor, he appeared in the Omid Jalili Show, Dead Ringers, and French Film. He took a break after his second Midsomer episode, but he's back acting and will appear in the upcoming Tom Hanks-produced miniseries Masters of the Air with Austin Butler. Maggie Ola Renshaw was grieving widow Mrs. Hopkirk. She also appeared in the Dogleg Murders. She describes herself as a proud Mancunian and a Man City supporter. She made her debut on TV in 1974 playing Tart in The Little Match Girl and gained a reputation over the years as a talented comedic actress. She's played Henrietta on Thomas the Tank Engine since 2014 and had a recurring role on Lovejoy. She also appeared in Seaview, First of the Summer Wine, Last of the Summer Wine, Coronation Street, Open All Hours, and the reboot Still Open All Hours. She's really into reboots. Stuart Milligan was Pantsdropper Mr. Hunsaker. He also appeared in the Series 22 episode Happy Families. Milligan is an American actor living in the UK where he is best known for his recurring appearances as Adam Klaus on the mystery series Jonathan Creek. He's also appeared in Whoops Apocalypse, Outland, The Assets, Jack Ryan, and Doctor Who, where he played President Nixon. He also played a president in Wonder Woman 1984, Superman in a series of BBC radio dramas, and the Riddler for a BBC radio adaptation of a Batman story. And you think he was?
And I could have sworn he was an English actor doing a bad American accent. I think he's one of those guys who may have spent so much time over in the UK that he has a slight UK, like he gets the UK lilt, and I think he had to turn it off for this, because as he was speaking, I was like, he sounds like a British guy doing a really bad American accent.
Yeah, and that is something that Americans do, and British people, when they come to the US, their accent flattens out.
As opposed to us when we go to the UK and try to talk British and just offend everybody.
And just sound like the leprechaun from Lucky Charms.
Yep.
Frank Mills played Ezra, who I believe was the guy at the bar who told about Johnny and X for the scotch because that was better than beer. But anyway, he also appeared in Death of a Stranger and Down Among the Dead Men. He had a long career as a British character actor going all the way back to 1958 when he appeared in Murder Bag. Over the years, he's appeared in Quatermass and The Pit, Doctor Who, North and South, not that one, The Sweeney, The Krez, All Creatures Great and Small, Nanny, not that one, Bergerac, yeah, that one, Rumpel of the Bailey, and Foyle's War. He passed away in 2021. Miles Richardson played brave hunter Sir Charles. You will have seen him in Tainted Fruit and Fit for Murder. He's also a prolific character actor appearing in Midsummer Night's Dream, Maurice, Allo Allo, Highlander, The Raven, The Brief, Flushed Away, Lucan, and The Crown. He's also appeared in the short films The Proctologist and Proctologist 2. Now, our village star this week is Claire Holman, who played the homemaker, Rose Sutherly. Claire is also a return visitor, appearing in Ring Out Your Dead and Miniature Murders. Claire has a long career on stage and screen and is probably most recognizable for her performance as pathologist Dr. Laura Hobson in both Inspector Morse and Inspector Lewis. Besides Lewis portrayer Keith Waitley, she is the only actor to play the same role in both shows. She was nominated for an Olivier Award for her role in a 1992 production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. On screen, she's appeared in The Rainbow, Let Him Have It, Sweet Francaise, Blood Diamond, and most recently in the Netflix series The Diplomat. She teaches acting at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. I thought she really, in a very subtle way, dominated this episode.
I think she had a very tough role to play in that she had to both be somehow the personification of a lot of male fantasies, judging by the amount of guys declaring their love for her, while also just trying to play a person sort of really unhappy with, like, she's just kind of tortured and unhappy with her lot in life.
Yeah.
I think she does a lot of subtle work in this episode. And I think there was a lot of legitimate, I think there could have been some other contenders for this. I think Juliet Aubrey as Ginny is fantastic in this episode.
Yeah. I think this is a very well acted episode.
Yes. I just think that by just a sheer amount of screen time, that this episode is really, in many ways, Rose's story.
Yeah.
She's the one that she actually, which is strange for Midsomer, they don't really have character arcs. Her character actually has a bit of an arc here.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very good actress. I've been watching some of the Lewises lately,
Mm-hmm.
and I enjoy her in there. And maybe someday we'll do a Lewis podcast.
Yeah.
We're not going to do a Lewis podcast. We do anything with Moonlighting's back. We're going to be watching. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back in just a few moments with the second half of Country Matters. And we're back. Let's talk about the second half of Country Matters.
I'm working as fast as I can.
Good afternoon, sir.
Oh. Well, I wasn't really ready for this, but what the heck? Variety is a spice, right?
Where's Mrs. Lamington?
No, who needs her? You can check my work. I don't think you're going to like it at all.
Rose is a very popular lady right now. Orlando shows up to her door to declare his love and says he's going to leave Ginny for her. Rose isn't interested. Then Barnaby and Jones arrives to inform her about the knife. Barnaby discovers a hidden camera in the kitchen and convinces her to tell him the truth about the business. So her dead husband left her with a mess when he died 3 years ago, and the cooking school has only made her finances worse. Then one day, a male student, of course it was male, made her an indecent proposal, and she accepted. This started her down the path. She's only for men of discerning tastes who also seem to want the wife experience, lots of cooking and comforting. She had no reason to kill Hopkirk. She didn't even know his real name. Barnaby asks to watch the video of his last visit, which is super uncomfortable, right? When they leave, Barnaby is convinced Rose isn't the killer, but the killer wants them to think she is. Next, Bullock calls them to the morgue to show them Hopkirk's brain. Apparently, Hopkirk had a stroke and was most likely unconscious when he was stabbed, hence his perfectly symmetrical wounds. He also had fresh traces of gunshot residue and saddle soap on his hands, meaning he'd also stopped at the Pagets and the Lamingtons on his final day. Good Lord, he was unstoppable. Barnaby visits both couples separately, both times interrupting them with some clients. The Pagets say this line of work has actually brought them closer together. Oh, and Hopkirk was there till 1:30 the day he died. Ginny tells him that Hopkirk came to her place around 2, but left around 4, completely alive. So, when did this guy do his job again? Meanwhile, Jones tries to track down a former mill worker that Hopkirk had been looking for. He asks an old friend of his uncle's who was drinking at Danny's pub, and after many agonizingly slow minutes, he gets the name. Johnny Crouch, who also sounds like a pretty miserable person. Jones heads over to Crouch's and interrupts someone wearing a balaclava trying to assault him. If you're American, balaclava means ski mask. Jones tries to grab the guy, but is actually hit upside the head with a kettle by Crouch. He learns that there never was a toxic spill at the mill, so that's all been a scam to help Good Fare get the land for cheap. Meanwhile, Barnaby has hit the streets to speak to his new informants, Otis and Dora. These kids see everything, like all the men hanging out at Rose's place, or the fact that local vicar, the Rev Suze, is having an affair with the delivery man, Gary. What is it with these vegetable delivery guys? Suze admits she's been a bad little vicar, but coughs up a nice detail. On the day of Frank's death, she saw Ginny and another person she couldn't make out driving the horse trailer towards the mill. And she knew it wasn't Orlando, so she kept quiet to protect Ginny's privacy. And her own. They question Rose at her husband's grave, and she finally remembers that Ginny stopped by the night of the murder to borrow a cookbook when she didn't need to. So now it is back to the Lamingtons, where Ginny denies going to Rose's, but hey, they find another hidden camera in the stables. Barnaby accuses her of murder and framing Rose, which causes Orlando, who has been watching all of this on camera, to come out and demand to know why. Which kind of answers the question there, buddy. She says that it wasn't her and tries to show them the video of what happened to Frank, but that's gone missing. They do find a badge that leads them to Ginny's partner, Danny. He has the tape and the balaclava, meaning he beat up Crouch as well. At the station, we get the full reveal. Ginny, hurt by her husband's long-standing obsession with Rose, took Danny as her lover. But then Danny began chasing Rose to get under Orlando's skin, and her hurt turned to hate. Frank was in love with Rose and called Dudley to tell him that he couldn't help with the fake toxic spill and was going to come clean. But he was on the stable camera when he made the call, and Danny was in the room watching because, perv. Danny sees his chance at a big payday slipping away, so he tries to beat up Frank to keep him quiet. But Frank ends up having a stroke and collapses unconscious. The pair can't find a pulse, so they just assume he's dead. Ginny sees an opportunity to pin all of this on Rose, so she convinces Danny to help her move the body to the mill. Once there, Danny leaves, but Ginny plans to stab Frank with Rose's knife that she picked up when she went to get the cookbook. Just as she's about to stab him, Frank comes to and looks at her, asking her to stop. She kills him anyways. In the end, Ginny and Danny are arrested for murder, and the supermarket conspiracy is brought to light with the video. And with no wife or market, Orlando is the big winner of the week.
Yay, Orlando.
No, I kid. The big winner is Tom, who gets really, really excited when Joyce reveals to him that Rose asked her to help out of the school. But Joyce isn't the whole wife experience. She's a dom.
That is such a perfect ending scene. His reaction.
It was disturbing. He's disturbing. He's so happy about that. Like, Barnaby needs a spanking, apparently. So let's talk about our killer, Ginny. And technically Danny, but Ginny really was the mastermind here.
Mm-hmm.
Jealousy and betrayal.
Yeah.
Are the big motives.
Yeah. When she's explaining why she did it, there is very much I am so aggrieved by everything, and Rose really deserved to be the one to have this all fall on her. And why didn't you believe me?
Yeah, and she has that it's a beautifully written line of basically explaining how all the men that like Ginny was involved with just kept going to Rose, and Rose wasn't doing anything, wasn't attracting him, was turning him down. And she goes, she kept the moral high ground, and that's enough to drive anyone to murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of thought that was a really wonderful piece of writing and acting.
Yeah.
But when she stabs Frank, that's a cold scene.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That was just like the eyes, and she's just like, nope, don't care.
Yeah. I do have a couple of questions.
Sure. I'll answer them.
Sure.
I wrote this episode. I know.
No, I did Danny know about the business? Because when he's at her place, seems like he would at least have known about it. And did he know
business with Ginny?
The business, the sex work,
yeah,
the sex business.
Ginny says that she told him, and that's why he was there watching the day that Frank was there, because he liked to watch.
Yeah, but did he know the extent of Rose's involvement in the business?
That is a question they do not answer.
Yeah. And also, I'm wondering, because her stabbing Frank is it's not spur of the moment, but I'm wondering when she would have, but it is opportunistic. So when would she have gone to get the knife from Rose's place? Was it on the way to the mill?
So the meeting was at 8, right? The council meeting was at 8.
Mm-hmm.
They dropped the body off around 7. That's
Mm-hmm.
when they said that the body was there. Frank went to the Lamingtons around 1:30, which means that, like, she says he left around 4, which means that, like, he was probably after a ride and the grooming and all that stuff. You're looking at around 3 o'clock, 3:30, probably when Danny beats him and causes the stroke. And she convinces to help him drive over there later. So I think at that point, I think they do say that Danny went back. And that's the point when she was making the plans to go get because they had to kind of cover their tracks. And then he came back with the horse trailer, drove it over. Here's my question. And I don't know enough about English weather. So this whole episode, it is cold enough that when people are outside, you can see the breath.
Mm-hmm.
Which means this is late autumn, winter time, probably. Is it still bright out at 7 p.m. because the sun is high and shining when they kill Frank, but because they're like, we kill him and then we go immediately to the meeting. But when the meeting happens, it's 8 o'clock and pitch dark.
Yeah, I think there's some things that they're playing with as far as the timing is concerned, but also when they're filming and when something is set, don't necessarily match up. I think this is
it does not match up.
This is supposed to be set, I think, in the summertime, or at least probably not around midsummer, but around um, but around,
Wah, wah.
the summer solstice, but around.
Hold on. Say that again.
I don't think it's around midsummer.
Whip crack.
um, or the summer solstice where the days are at their longest. But and they probably had to film it, and we could have looked this up, but they usually film summer scenes when it's colder out.
Yeah, it was really funny. It's like
Mhm.
their breath is noticeable.
Yeah.
And I was like, because the episode aired in September, so this was probably filmed, I would say probably early springtime.
Yeah, because there's still enough greenery that it can pass for summer.
Yeah.
But especially in the mornings, it would still be quite cold.
Why did Ginny want to show them the video?
I think because it would have put everything on Danny.
Well, except it opens up more. It makes more questions than answers. So okay, so wait, Frank was there. Danny beat him up. You were clearly around though, because you could be like, you didn't. What, you just never came back and you didn't notice?
Yeah.
It was like this weird desperation move that actually was like pretty stupid.
Yeah. Well, why do all these people confess at the end without a lawyer present?
That's just TV mysteries. That's just TV mysteries. They're just like, well, you got me. Like, I think the argument has always been they just want to confess because they're carrying the guilt, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, not how things happen in real life.
Oh, hey, Rose has a favorite knife. So do I. Twinsies.
There is one that always seems like it's so well balanced. It fits your hands best. So that's your favorite knife, yeah.
Let's talk about Dora and Otis for a minute. Are they a future married couple?
I found their relationship very interesting because Dora is at a very expensive school, but she's not hanging out with any of her classmates. So there is something there that she is not connecting with her classmates. She's hanging out with this kid who's the pub owner's son because he's providing her alcohol and probably somebody to talk to because nobody else is really talking to her.
In some ways, she's behaving a little bit, I think, like Ginny. Not Rose, but more like Ginny. It's just like,
yeah,
Otis is beneath her. Otis is providing her with things.
Yeah.
I think Dora makes it very clear in the second half that she knows what's going on with her mom, that she chooses to ignore it.
Yeah.
That's why she's so adamant that her mom is still in love with her dead dad. Whenever Otis brings up the fact that his dad sure seems to like Rose.
Yeah.
And I think just poor Otis, like, both has a big crush on Dora, but also really wants a mom.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Now, Dora, the time you see her happiest is when she's having her writing lesson out at Ginny's place. And I think that's why she probably models herself after Ginny more than her mother, because she sees Ginny as more of the life she wants. Yes. She probably sees this with her classmates. And that's, her fact, that's obviously what all the girls in her school are saying.
But she's so kind of rude to Otis and really kind of crappy to Otis. And actually is a little crappy at the top to Barnaby, that when Barnaby at one point just tells Joyce, Rose has a lovely daughter, Dora. And I'm like, is that sarcasm?
Yeah. I think she's also just a very lonely child. And I think she very much loved her father. She did not know the issues with the finances and everything that were going on.
Yeah.
And the looks she gives, some of the stuff that isn't necessarily in the dialogue, but in her acting, really show you how much she is hurt by her father not being there anymore.
Why did Dora and Otis just always go to the construction site to smoke and drink?
I guess nobody else was there, except for dead bodies.
But yeah, they love to go to that construction site until the second half, where they've just stopped giving a crap, and they're smoking and drinking just around the corner from her house.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they's like, I'm not going back where we found the dead creepy guy.
Yeah.
So let's just do it in this,
Well, it's all out in the open.
Yeah, I figured that, at that point, everybody knows what they've been doing anyway. And apparently nobody gives that much of a thought to it.
And then Barnaby starts treating them like informants.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like his own little personal Huggy Bears.
Oh, yeah. They are, and he really seems to get kids in a way that's really fun because, and I think it has to do with his relationship with Cully. It's not always straightforwardly, positive. He does get short with people at times, like a father would. But
But I'm just like waiting for the. All right, kids, what do you hear on the streets?
yeah, what's going on the streets of Elverton?
Here's $20. Tell me what you hear.
Yeah.
We have not talked about her a lot yet, but it is hard not to talk about the Rev Suze.
Rev Suze. Oh my gosh.
Who we first meet while they're in the grocery store at the opening, as she runs up to Tom wearing a Shopping with Jesus t-shirt and introduces herself in a way that Barnaby is just dumbstruck.
I'm with Barnaby on this. I would have been terrified.
And then the next time we see her, she's jogging for Jesus.
Yeah. The t-shirts were classic.
I really hope she got to keep them.
I do too.
But she's so nonchalant about anything. Like when she's answering questions to Barnaby and Jones and just starts stretching. Like balancing on them to stretch her calves.
Yeah. Yeah. In any other context, she would be really annoying. In real life, she would be terrifying. But in Midsomer, she's just slightly more colorful than average.
She's just another eccentric Midsummerite who has an affair with like we never really see what the consequences are of this. Is like, but she is having an affair with Gary. That she was jogging like sometimes she was jogging to jump into his van and make the van start rocking.
Yeah. When the van is rocking, don't come a knocking.
I just wonder what's going to happen to those two.
Yeah.
That's a story point that just kind of gets, we're just not going to worry about.
Yeah.
Strange kill. The fact that there was only one murder in this episode, which is pretty strange for this show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This says one of the lowest body counts of all shows.
I mean, even if you throw in like the dead husband from the we never see.
Yeah.
Still,
that's only
he died of natural causes.
That's only 2 deaths.
Yeah. I'm guessing they couldn't afford another body because they were paying all those extras to visit to be customers or to be Johnny Crouch.
Yeah.
Some detective work in this episode. First of all, there's a point where Rose is just shutting the door in Barnaby and Joseph's face in mid interrogation.
Yeah.
They're cops. Don't do that.
Yeah, that could get you in the U.S. probably arrested for, I don't know.
Yep.
Being mean to the cop.
Yep. We had plenty of fun little Jones moments.
Yeah.
His face when Rose is telling her story, and it's just kind of in the background, but his face is priceless.
Yeah. He does so much work off camera or without dialogue. That's just background camera work. He's priceless.
He's really getting into watching that video, which was a little dirty.
Yeah, I think he's a little sad when Barnaby tells him to fast forward.
But his love, I'm really kind of like realizing he is a tech head.
Oh,
he loves tech. Nice telly.
Nice telly. Yeah.
But here he's like nice cameras and like top of he knows all the specs on these cameras.
Yeah. And those were good quality cameras for that time.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known. And I love the way that when they get the video from Rose and they put it in the bag, and he is holding it with 2 fingers away from him, like the whole thing is covered in whatever. As opposed to it's just a play. Like Barnaby just like, give me that. Why is he just holding that video like it's radioactive?
I'm not going to make any dirty comments about the name of the town.
At least you know it was Everton and Lafferty were they were up to.
Yeah.
There's a scene towards the end of the first half where we are starting to get the bits about Johnny Crouch, that kind of little sideline. And Jones tries to bring it up with Barnaby, and Barnaby's like, not now.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jones asks a question that is very legitimate, and Barnaby doesn't wait for the answer and just asks another question. So, Jones is putting in some decent work, but, Barnaby's not paying attention yet to it.
You know what he was paying attention to? When he met Mr. Hensecker.
Mr. Hensecker.
Classic scene of Hensecker believes that Barnaby is somehow a new part of this the Dom experience, and drops his pants in front of him.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was ready, but he was game.
And Barnaby just barely responds. He's like, I've seen worse. Quick little corner. Bullock really enjoyed showing him that brain.
Yeah.
He just had fun there.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this. I'm like, no. Do we have to?
Yeah, Bullock didn't have a whole lot to do, but he made the most of it.
Exactly. And then let's close like the episode did with the home life. Lots of fun little Barnaby and Joyce moments.
I love their grocery shopping together.
Barnaby just looks like he wants to die.
Well, we all kind of want to die a little bit in the grocery store, especially when they don't have the right horseradish.
I mean, he's just waiting for her to go get like his horseradish, the one that he likes. And
yeah.
Lazy Tom. Which also probably explains why Joyce was a little miffed at him.
Yeah.
With the earplugs.
Yeah. And the mask.
They never really explained why she was mad at him. I'm assuming he left her somewhere.
Yeah.
Did you notice that the bedroom set for them is very sparse?
Yeah.
Like next to nothing on the walls.
And we do see them in bed on occasion, like Michael Carroll Brady. You do have those little moments.
Their house seems to be very lived in and real. That bedroom just had next to nothing. I was like, this feels that felt like a set.
Yeah.
A way that they don't I'm wondering if they couldn't normally get the house they use, and they just had to throw together a makeshift set and do those two scenes together.
Yeah.
Trying to imagine Joyce in a cooking class.
I wonder if she passed, or if Rose just kind of gave up and passed her anyway.
Maybe that's why Rose was like offering her a job. It's like, look, cooking isn't your thing, but
yeah.
You seem very wifey mommy. Let's talk.
Yeah.
And again, let's just reiterate that Joyce said she'd much rather be a Ginny, and Tom was there for it.
Oh, yeah. Perfect ending scene.
Or was it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, final thoughts for Country Matters.
I think this is what you really want in a Midsomer episode. It's fun, it's well acted, it's got some memorable characters. Overall, it mainly works as a mystery. Not too many complaints there, just a few, But I think this is one of their best.
Yeah, again, like I said, this is the reputation as the sexy episode. It is and it isn't, but it is an interesting mystery, very engaging, well acted, fun, funny, strange. It is kind of again the consummate what you want out of Midsomer.
Yeah,
you want a murder mystery that's left of center.
Yeah. And it does it without following too much of their traditional.
Breaks all the rules.
Yeah, there's only, like we said, there's only one murder. There's not the middle of the, and it comes fairly late, not real late, but fairly late. It doesn't start off with it, and then it doesn't have the mid episode murder, and then the attempt or actual murder at the end. So
yeah,
it does what you want a Midsomer episode to do without being bound to the formula.
Yes, agreed. Fun episode. Watch it with your whole family.
Maybe not the kids.
Why is that van rocking? Oh, they're wrestling.
What's that with the whip?
He was bad. Don't you be bad. That's everything we wanted to talk about. We want to thank everyone for giving us a listen. If you have anything you want to discuss about Country Matters or Midsomer Murders in general, feel free to email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com. If you want us to use your email in the show, please say so. We are also Welcome to Midsomer on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube, where we are slowly uploading our old episodes. As of this recording, we're up to episode 7, and we're getting really nice response from people discovering us on there. We love it. Please follow us in all of these places. A reminder, we are still trying to put together stories for our anniversary episode. Please send us what are your favorite Midsomer episodes? How did you get into this show? What do you find the weirdest about this show? Who's your favorite characters? Who's your favorite Barnaby? We've been hearing from some of you. We are truly enjoying what we're hearing. We want to hear more. We want more. So just email us all of that at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com, or you know what? Just add it to any one of our posts. We will find it and include it. We'd love to hear from all of you. If you like what you hear and you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to us or rating and reviewing us on iTunes. That really helps people find us. Also, tell all your friends about us, even the ones that don't watch Midsomer. We're open to everyone. We'll be back soon with a new episode, and we hope you will join us again. As we take the road out of Midsomer, we want to thank you again for listening and remind you that in Midsomer, supermarkets can be murder.
Fact.
Whip crack. Welcome to Midsomer is produced by Eric Buscher and Eileen Becker. All clips in this podcast are used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act fair use exception for criticism and commentary. Our logo and podcast art was designed by Smeedrai. Our theme music is by the infamous Space.
And this is where I curse you for giving me this one. Maggie Ole Renshaw? Is that what is that?
Maggie Olin Renshaw.
Ola Renshaw. Okay.
Ola Renshaw.
Okay. Maggie Ola Renshaw was grieving.
I think she's got it. Now you're going to mess me up.